You don't need me to tell you there is huge pressure when you're looking to buy a house, because whether you're planning to live in it or rent it out, it is one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. One simple choice: build new or buy existing makes a major difference to how that decision plays out. Now, welcome to Ask the Experts, where each week we talk to people in the industry, get that inside word on what's happening right now, what that means for the tactics you should use to make the most of your money. Now, new builds, they do come with perks, sometimes better mortgage deals, lower maintenance, the thrill of something fresh. All of that can impact your bottom line, but they also come with paperwork, sometimes time delays, that unsettling feeling of signing up for something that doesn't actually exist yet. Buying existing means you know what you're getting, or at least you think you do. It is faster, sometimes simpler, but older homes can hide expensive surprises, and not every street or suburb is future-proofed for value growth. So which option actually sets you up better, not just for now, but for the future value of your property? Now, getting to the bottom of this, with us is Kirsty Healey from Enable Me. Making Sense has partnered up with Enable Me to get you the strategies for reaching financial freedom faster. Whether you're wanting to get mortgage-free or grow your wealth through investments, they've got the team to help you. Head to their website to learn more. Visit enable.me today. Thanks for coming on, Kirsty. I'm really excited to talk about this one with you. Now, look, if someone's weighing up building versus buying, what are some of the things they should be thinking about? Like, what's in the mix?
Building is a marathon, right? It can be a relationship with your builder that might last 6 months, or it could last up to 18 months. So there is a lot that can happen over that time frame as a start. When it comes to buying existing, if you're going to auction, you could own that property within the course of an hour. So there is a big difference when you're weighing it up as to, can you tolerate any risk within that marathon to building a house? Or do you actually need something right now? i.e., do you need something to move into because you've sold a home of yours? Are you renting and you want to get onto the property ladder? You've got family, you can't afford that additional marathon. Am I buying to live in, or am I buying to invest in, right? Because the lens that you look through in terms of which option you go for can be quite different.
Ooh, okay. So if someone's thinking they want to live in it versus investing, is there like a sort of key thing to look at if it's a live-in? Is there a key thing to look at to help you weigh it up if it's an investment?
Yes, absolutely. With a property that you're going to live in, obviously, this is something that is more of an emotional decision for you. You want to ensure that that property ticks the boxes for both you and your family. So you're going to be considering things like, when it comes to the choice between new build and existing, is that new build in a new subdivision that's actually a long distance away from everywhere that I need to be? Work-wise, grocery shop-wise, taking the kids to school, etc. Is that location difference, is that going to make a difference to you? Quite often, existing properties are in more established neighbourhoods, which might be actually closer to where you want to be. In terms of availability in that time horizon, can you wait for 18 months, and do your finances allow you to wait for 18 months until that property is actually built? Then when it comes to that investor lens, whereas your home might be more of an emotional decision, with investment, you're looking at it from the lens of, do the numbers stack up?
100%. It absolutely has to be quite a cold-blooded decision at that point, really, doesn't it? Now, look, one of the things, and this is especially for the New Zealand context, it does also apply to some other places overseas. So, lovely listeners, check it out where you are. But most of our audience is New Zealand. So new builds can sometimes come with lower deposit requirements, right? Or even a better mortgage rate, sometimes, depending on your bank. Does that make a difference for the bottom line in the end?
Yeah, and what do you mean by bottom line? Like, does that mean that as a homeowner that as well as having that amazing place to live, that you actually like, oh, I'm hoping that at some stage I want to upsize this property. This is my first foot on the ladder. But do I actually want to see that equity grow within my property and to enable me to then get into actually the house of my dreams, right? So that might be your bottom line. When it comes to investors, their bottom line is very immediate, right? We're stacking up the numbers today. We're planning out, we're forecasting, we're looking ahead 10 to 15 years out, to a property cycle and beyond. Does it stack up in terms of the bottom line? What I'd say in both scenarios, though, is that actually when it comes to the choice between new build and existing, it's about your entry into the market. So if you have to save a smaller deposit, you can get onto that property ladder a lot sooner than perhaps, 10%. You might have 10% for a new build as a homeowner. That might be all the difference in a 2 years, 5 years difference that you can get onto the property ladder and start to pay down that mortgage and get yourself ahead much sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing. Time is literally money. We talk so much about the relationship between time and money, whether it's compound interest or whether that can work for you or against you, debt versus investments. And to sometimes have that edge where you can get ahead a little bit faster can be huge for your personal wealth, personal finance journey, right?
I guess another thing to consider with that is that I'm an investor. I know that when it comes to repairs and maintenance on my older stock, my existing builds, they're getting pretty hefty now, I have to admit. When you're having to replace a roof, and that's, upwards of $20,000, that can really eat into that bottom line. And I'm, that's for both homeowners and for investors, obviously. So repairs and maintenance are quite a large consideration when it comes to that tossing up that new build or that existing build in terms of that bottom line piece. When I'm doing numbers for clients and I'm looking at the cash flow, quite often the cash flow, perhaps it's quite similar, but actually the forecasted repairs and maintenance throws everything out of the water in terms of that long-term hold that we need for property investment to get the most that we can out of that property.
How much are you thinking in terms of maintenance for those older properties? Because I recorded a different podcast with someone else, and they said that they would often put aside for an older property maybe about 1% of the value of the house as yearly maintenance. But I think horses for courses. Everyone has different numbers on this. So would you have a percentage or a dollar figure that you'd say that people should think about in terms of maintenance of older buildings? Or is it can it change too much? Like, what are you thinking?
I start at 5%.
Oh, wow. So a lot more.
Yeah, but how do you put that aside? And to me, that's just really about having a really good buffer. When you've got an investment property, right, you need that because you don't know what's going to come up, i.e. a little thing called COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an experienced investor. I got caught out in COVID.
Yeah.
You need that buffer to really support both repairs and maintenance and those curveballs that life sends you. But to be honest, some years that percentage just isn't enough. Sometimes it does need to be higher. Sometimes you can anticipate that by going, I bought this house, knowing from my building inspection that the building inspector said you're going to need to spend money replacing the roof, or God forbid that you might invest into a villa or buy a villa.
Ooh, they're so pretty and they're so expensive.
Aren't they just gorgeous? And the character, you cannot replace
I love
that.
visiting someone else's villa.
Yes.
I don't feel like I'm the person to maintain one, but for those who are willing to go for it,
yes.
bless you, because we all like seeing it on the street.
Yes. I don't know if you've recently looked into how much it costs to do things like repile, redo the wiring, re-roof, reclad. Oof. All of those things can really make quite a significant dent into your cash flow, of course. That's money that you need to take from your post-tax earnings to put towards that kind of repair and maintenance. Also, you need to be really wary, right? If we're talking about 1910, 1920s villas, are there requirements from both your insurance company and your lender around that? And so those are both things that can be a bit of a catch-22 when it comes to older homes. Can you actually even get insurance? And obviously, from a finance perspective, having insurance is going to be a requirement of getting some lending.
Yeah.
Right? So with a existing home, that's going to be potentially a higher risk that eats into the cash flow and that bottom line again.
Not so fun fact. When you take on a 30-year mortgage, you'll probably pay more than double what you originally borrowed because of the cost of interest. That's probably not the Kiwi dream you bought into. The team at Enable Me specialise in taking charge of your money and growing your wealth, including how to get rid of your mortgage faster. Book a consultation with an Enable Me financial advisor today by visiting enable.me. Gotta say, currently so far, I feel like we're leaning towards new builds a little bit, but there are some downsides for those as well, right? Are there things that you can run into that can cause issues? Whether we're talking, budget blowouts, I feel like everyone gets upset about council delays. I hear a lot about council delays. Are there things that can happen there, and are there ways that can be mitigated?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to balance that up for you, Frances, because I've done a few new builds and I've done a little bit of development. And I can tell you, the buffer really comes into play. The revolving credit really comes into play when you're developing. There's that old saying, what can go wrong will go wrong. And I don't want to put anyone else off here, but when you compare the risk with new build and with existing you can touch, you can see, you can feel, you can bring someone in to look and then to review.
Yeah.
With new build, who are you reviewing? Who are you doing your due diligence on? You're doing it on whoever you're in contract with.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that the person that you engage is financially stable, has got a history of delivery and delivering good quality, right? So because we're sending a lot of money their way, it's pretty hard to start unwinding when you start the process of building and you've engaged with someone. And it also is pretty stressful if you run into problems. So when it comes to new build, you're doing your due diligence on the person that you're engaging. You want to ask as many questions as you can. You want to be able to see other properties that they might have developed. Do a Google search. It's amazing what you can find out by doing a Google search, whether this person has had several company structures, perhaps, that they've
bounced between.
Yes, very quietly disappeared. But certainly New Zealand's a small enough place that once you start asking around, you can understand the quality of the person that you're engaging with in a contract.
Yeah.
In terms of other things that you might want to consider with new build, which are a bit of a headache, councils, regulatory bodies, the time it takes to go through that process of consenting, that can be both expensive, and you want to understand that part, i.e., is there going to be additional engineering? Have we done any necessary checks on the site that we're building on? Yeah, and that depends on whether you've got your own section or if that is part of a wider development that you're buying into in perhaps like a land and build type package. We also know that with new builds, there's a very high chance that you go over budget.
Right.
So having that contingency in place, super important. And I would actually say up to 20%.
Wow.
Contingency. And if we just look at our recent history with supply chain constraints and COVID, super inflationary. So first of all, we couldn't even get those items. And second of all, they might have taken 3 times as long to get here. And then they cost an arm and a leg once they did get here. So
what a nightmare. I feel like one of the key tensions for me, and especially it's kind of been reinforced as we're having this conversation, but one of the things for me, if you're weighing this up, is with an existing house, often, as long as you're doing all your proper inspections and getting under the hood of it properly, it's more of a known quantity. You know what you're getting. But depending on how old it is, how long it's been an existing house for, you might be hitting more maintenance issues and things like that. The new build is often, not always, but hopefully, a nice, good quality, very fresh, very new, up to current building standards. But more things in the mix that can go wrong, like you say, the budget blowouts, the time delays. How do those factors balance out for you, and particularly bearing in mind the sort of financial impact of those?
I think it really depends on what you want, first and foremost. Let's go back to, why are we considering either of them? For example, I've got a lot of clients that I'm seeing at the moment who are a bit older and they're looking ahead to retirement. So it's important for them that they have something that's warm, that's going to see them out in their golden years.
Yeah.
And the first question that I ask them is, this home that you're in, is that your forever home? And is it future-proofed?
Yeah.
So in that situation, a new build might tick that box. In another situation, you might get an existing home that ticks the boxes on the warm and it ticks the boxes on single story, easy to access. But maybe it doesn't tick the box on the repairs and maintenance, which we don't want to do when we're 75 and we've got a 1/4 acre section. Yeah. So I always bring it back to, first and foremost, what is it that we're after? Whether we're a home buyer, whether we're an investor, what is the checklist of the non-negotiables that we need for that home? And then what are the nice to haves? Most of the time, in my experience, we can't get everything that we want in a home, but we need to understand that we're checking the non-negotiables first.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. I mean, really, that is what it comes down to, isn't it? Thank you so much, Kirsty Healey from Enable Me, giving us the goss on that one. Now, I have had heaps of DMs on this before, so if I missed something that you really wanted us to answer on this episode, send it through to me. We can always do another one. I know we talked heaps of stuff on this, but there's so much more we could talk about. But before, of course, you go, hit subscribe, Making Sense, wherever you're listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and send it on to a friend so we can all level up money together. Until next time, have a great day. Just a note before you go. This podcast can only give you general information about how things work in most cases. It's not individual financial advice. We're all different, so some of this might not apply to your specific situation. Take what works for you, ignore the rest. If you're after individual financial advice, a financial advisor is always the best bet.